everybody, Katie Sutton here with your February 2026 energy update. We are going to have a big month. What the guides are telling me is that this is the month to pay attention to because it's going to set the energetic tone for the year. And I know in the last energy update, I shared with you about the themes of the year. Those are going to keep moving forward. And we worked a lot in January on chop wood and carry water, bringing the spiritual into the mundane. I did not expect it to be quite as literal as it was. We had so many crazy storms, ice storms and snowstorms where I am. So we were literally chopping wood and carrying water and shoveling snow. I think February is going to be an intense month, but not intense in the way that January was. We were in the in-between energy in January, and February has major astrological shifts. It has a solar eclipse on February 17th. We have a Mercury retrograde that begins on February 25th. And in the middle of that, we have a lot of astrological transits that are happening. And so I think it's going to be a very action-packed month. So let's get into the themes of February and what to expect this month so you can navigate it with as much grace and ease as possible. So the first theme that I want to talk with you about is releasing cynicism. So we had a major transit that occurred on January 26th, where we moved from Neptune in Pisces to Neptune in Aries. It got a lot of press. A lot of people were talking about it as this kind of release of this Piscean energy, of illusion energy, and coming into personal authority, where we are our own spiritual teacher, we are our own leader within. Because of that, we're going to have a couple of energies in these first two themes that are clearing some duality. So this first theme of releasing cynicism is one half of that polar lens that we were in the Neptune and Pisces energy. So when we talk about disillusionment, we have cynical energy, and then we have this hopeless romantic energy, which is going to be the second theme. So when we're looking at cynicism, this is the energy where we are seeing everything through a glass half full lens. It is our negative self-talk. It is the part of us that goes into negativity and separation energy in order to try to protect us from more harm. It's actually a way for us to try to protect our nervous systems from disappointment. And so if you are someone as a child who had really high hopes and they got dashed a lot, you might have some of the cynical energy that you're navigating. And of course, if you look out at the world, there are a lot of things I think that we can be very cynical about right now. We can see everything that's happening and see the suffering and see the pain of the change that we are going through and look at it through a cynical lens. And I think we need to be conscious of using a lens of truth versus hopelessness. There's a balance. A lot of what I'm seeing in the ethers and in my social media feed and what people are talking about is that we need to get into this energy of battle. We need to fight against tyranny, and we need to protest, and we need to get into standing up for our rights and changing what's happening on this planet, which is all totally valid, and it is power to the people. We need to be doing those things. However, if it means that you are not taking care of yourself and you are not taking moments to find joy and moments to find hope and moments to find connection, even in the midst of that, then you might be swinging the pendulum too far in that direction of battle energy. And eventually that's going to take a toll on your being. And so this Neptune in Aries energy asks us to pull out of disillusionment energy or pretending that everything's okay, or turning our head in the other direction, pretending that something isn't happening, and to instead look at what's occurring while staying in our center and taking the action that we can take that feels right for us while also still taking care of our own personal needs and the needs of our community. It's a lot to balance. And sometimes we can become cynical and feel like there's nothing that we can do to help. Our actions don't matter. Everybody in power is just going to take us over, and we have no rights. We have no ability to fight back. So that cynical energy might also show up as this energy of deep disempowerment. So if you tend to be somebody who looks through the glass half empty, and is having this tendency to go into this cynical energy, you might find that showing up as this kind of functional freeze in your system where you can't take any action and you just want to pull out of society altogether. We did that. already. That's what we're moving out of. In our last few years, especially last year, we were in this hermited, separate, just do your own thing, inner work kind of energy. We need to keep taking care of ourselves, keep paying attention to what's happening in the world, and start to balance that by taking action for everyone, not just for ourselves, but also for humanity. And that means that we've got to find something that gives us hope. We have to find aligned action that gives us hope so we can pull out of this cynical, hopeless, disempowered energy. That's theme number one, releasing cynicism. The second theme is the hopeless romantic. And of course, we're in Valentine's Day here in the States this month, and we got a lot of hearts roaming around here, right, in our collective consciousness of what love is. And we might really have some high desires that we want to fulfill this month of being adored and being loved and being cherished. We're going to be also clearing the hopeless romantic this month. So this is swinging the pendulum all the way in the other direction to that energy of spiritual bypassing where we think, oh, everything's just going to work out and I don't need to do any work to make sure that it works out. I don't need to use my voice. The universe has my back. I don't have to worry. And there's some good energy in that where we want to be in trust and co-creation with the universe. Hello, that's one of our themes for 2026. But we can't do that in pretend land. We can't do that in fantasy land. This is a lot of times what I see in certain manifestation teachings where they're like, just put the thought out and just trust that it's going to happen. No, that doesn't actually work. You put the thought out, you put the desire out, and then you do the inner work that is necessary to be in receivership of that. And receivership is actually an active energy sometimes. It's not always passive. It means that we have to get in alignment with the life that we want to live. If we're sitting on the couch and ignoring what's happening in our own life, in our own experience, and not taking any action, we're also not going to have the outcome that we want. And so, as we clear this hopeless romantic energy, some of you might feel like this is a little bit of a splash of cold water this month where you've been sitting in an illusion about some part of your life and just romanticizing it and pretending that it's this beautiful, glorious thing and it's just going to get better. This might be the month where the universe says, okay, if you really want to feel that and you want it to be true, then here are the actions that you need to take. And so, we practiced in January having to hunker down and take actions. Aries energy is very action oriented. So this Neptune and Aries transit that we're starting to sink our teeth into, which is a 14 to 15 year transit, by the way. So this is here for the long haul. We're just getting introduced to these energies, is asking us to also take very measured action. And a lot of what I'm seeing in people's energy fields that is evocative of this particular theme of clearing the hopeless romantic energy is where we need to work on containment and divine masculine frequency, where we need to change structure and form in our life because we have maybe been a little too loosey-goosey with something and it just really doesn't work for us. Maybe you have a friend that can do everything without a plan and they can just fly by the seat of their pants and it works for them. That may not work for you. Maybe you need a little bit more structured energy in your reality. Maybe you need to call some of that structure and form into your day-to-day life just so that you feel better and you can continue to keep hope alive. Sometimes we need to pull things in and get them in a sense of form before we can let go. And that's okay if that's how you roll. Not everybody creates in the same way. Some people really like that spontaneous energy. Other people need a plan. This is the month to embrace how you create and pull out of just this fantasy version that says it's just going to happen and they're just going to show up. They're just going to take care of me. The universe has got my back. Yes, it does, but you also have to sit in worthiness and receivership of that. So that's the second theme, the hopeless romantic. The third theme is attuning to your needs. And this is building on those first two. So once we clear this duality energy, of how we create and how we walk through the world, where we're not the cynic, we're not the glass half empty, we're not the glass is totally full version. We start to come into reality. We start to come into almost a sobering moment that says, this is what I need. This is who I am. This is how I function. This is what I need to create the life that I want. These are my non-negotiables. And we start to get into direct connection of God within, the source energy inside of us that is directing our own personal experience. Imagine that each of you are like little universe creators from the inside out. What you are doing when you attune to your needs and you start to get really honest about what you need, whether that's in relationship, at work, in your day-to-day routine, what you need to put in your body, how you need to take care of your body, whatever it is, as you start to do that, you're literally attuning with this inherent creator energy inside of you, and you're fine tuning the vibrations in your being so you can see reflected in your reality what you really want. And when we are in this place of attunement, we also are pulling out of the chaos and the distraction energy around us, which we'll talk more about in theme number 4. This attunement often requires us to slow the heck down. We are moving on February 17th in the Chinese astrology, the Chinese New Year, to the year of the fire horse. We know that this is going to be a fiery, big, fast-paced energy. The medicine for that, the best way to navigate that is to slow down and listen. Slow down and listen to what you need, what you want, and take action accordingly, slow and steady. This is not a sprint, it is a marathon. And the universe is going to be sending a lot of pulses at you that are going to try to distract you. There's going to be a lot of things happening in the collective. Stuff is really going to be loud again this month because of all these things happening astrologically. I don't know how it couldn't. When we have an eclipse, we're often doing some shadow work and we're plunged into some of the under realms in society and having to look at things, and things are coming to the surface. This is going to be a month where there's going to be a lot of energy that's going to want to pull us off of our center. We worked in January on staying in our seat, staying in our place of authority so that we can co-create with the universe, with source, and with the earth, and with our fellow humans. We really need to stay in this place of attunement. If you are finding yourself unaligned or disorganized or feeling dysregulated, come back to the simple check-in with self, a daily check-in with self of, did I take care of my needs today, or did I take care of everybody else, or did I align with the needs of the collective and the energy outside of me? This is going to be a month to just keep coming back home, keep coming back to that space of attunement. It's very easy, especially if you're someone who is a recurrent people pleaser, to attune and calibrate to what's happening outside of you in order to create safety. We are really pulling out of that more firmly this month. We started in January. We're going to build on that in February. And so that takes me to the 4th theme, which I think will be the primary overarching theme of the month. And it's consequently the one that we will work on in our group healing activation on February 11th, which is softening to the chaos. Okay. Not softening into the chaos, softening to the chaos, softening in response to chaos. And a lot of what I've been working on so far in the last few days leading up into February is the 3, I call them the 3 diaphragms in the body. Only one of them is actually the diaphragm, but they operate similarly. We have the palate or the roof of the mouth, we have the actual diaphragm of the body, and then we have the pelvic bowl or the pelvic floor. Those are 3 points in the body where we hold tension. And we want to actually have strength in those parts of our being and connection, but we don't want to be holding tension because then that signals to our nervous system that we are not safe. And then we are bracing as we go out into the world. I always pay attention when I get guided to do those somatic release practices with my clients, because that means that we are preparing to be in a softer place because there's something chaotic that's going to go on outside of us. Now, we're already in that. It could get more intense. It could get louder. We could have more awarenesses coming forward of the collective shadow that we're clearing and the injustice on this planet. However, our active need is to continue to soften in our own experience. That means that you need to do whatever you can to create softness in your life, to smooth out the hard edges wherever you can. There are so many things that we cannot control right now. We cannot control how these systems fall apart. We cannot control what collapse looks like. All we can control is our care of ourselves, our care of those around us, and our response to these things. And so much of that is physiological in nature, and it's built on past traumas that we've experienced in this lifetime and in other lifetimes, and how we typically respond to chaos. My hope for you all this month with this theme of softening to the chaos is that you're going to find either a practice or a teaching or a ritual or an awareness where it's going to enable you to soften a little bit more. I think of this as we're in a storm and we need to be more flexible and more fluid, because when we're in rigidity, it creates this tendency to have more injury to our person. How we meet something changes how we receive it. And if we are bracing for battle, that is what we are going to experience. That's why I'm very conscious of this move from Neptune in Pisces to Neptune in Aries, that we just don't go fully into this battle mode. Because let's be real, I think we've actually been in battle mode and in fight energy for, at least for most of us, for most of our lives. That's the conditioning that we've been in. And so if we don't learn how to soften into this chaos and soften while still taking action and creating change, we're going to wear ourselves out. So, my invitation to you with this fourth theme is anywhere where you can this month, find soft places to land. If you are somebody and you are in your exercise practice and it is hard and intense and your body is like telling you, hell no, I don't want to do that, find a place or a way to soften while still honoring your body's needs. Also, pay attention to where you have hardened your boundaries, where you have become so rigid in letting people into your life that you can't just meet them for a cup of coffee at the spur of a moment. Find places where you've created almost a fortress around you of boundaries, and soften enough to let those that deserve to be in your life, that care about you, that love you, that want to meet you where you are, back in. I think this is a month, and maybe it's just because we got 11 inches of snow here yesterday, but I see it as this image of us melting these layers of ice around us, around our heart chakras, around our vocal cords, around our being, where we've been in this freeze response of protection for so long that we are not soft enough to meet the world. We are not softening into vulnerability. We're not softening into our emotions. We're not expressing. We're not creating. We're not bringing beauty into the world. We have to keep doing these things in order to make it through this, my friends. We cannot harden our hearts and navigate all of this change and all of this corruption that we see in the collective. Stuff is going to continue to be loud. We have to find places to soften the hard edges. And so this also looks like your negative self-talk and your mental programs where you are really hard on yourself, where you are judging yourself and you're trying to create change through force or through effort. This month, really drop into, okay, how can I let some of that go? How can I love myself through a transformation? How can I love myself into change? What would that look like? And I can promise you that any change that you create from love will be lasting change. If it comes from a place of true self-love, non-attachment, it will be lasting change. If it comes from shame and judgment, it will not last. It will be fleeting. This might also look like, how can you soften in some of those relational patterns with partners? Where can you pull out of judgment of those that you're in partnership with, those that are close to you, maybe family members? This is a month to allow more compassion and more grace for yourself so that you can soften for others as well. And I keep thinking about the song that plays in my head a lot of times when the guides are asking me to soften, which is be like water. Find your flow. Find how, when things are shifting around you, you can trust that your inner compass, your creator self is in the lead, your enlightened self is in the lead, and you can flow with whatever comes in. This is energy this month that's asking you to realize that you're not being punished or tested by the universe. I think that some of the things that happen in February, especially with these big transits, and anytime Mercury goes into retrograde, there's always an interesting energy too, where you're going to be like, oh, this is a test. They're testing me. They're punishing me. That's not actually what's happening. It's actually just This energy of friction coming in to get you to practice this softening, to get you to practice showing up and listening to yourself and trusting your intuition and trusting your next steps are guided first from the internal and then from the universal energy, the external energy. This is really a month to get out of your own way if you can and be kind. Please be kind to yourself. And maybe if we learn to be kind to ourselves, we can learn to be kind to one another again. Maybe we can find a way to take care of one another again. Maybe we can find a way by softening with ourselves to begin to soften with others. And then we can start to bridge some of these big gaps and these dualities that we've experienced for the last 5 or 6 years, really, really in a big way. Okay. So soften, my friends, be like water, find your flow. If you feel that you need to stand up or protest or fight against something to create change, be in a space of practiced intentional resistance. Don't do it because you feel like you should. Do it because it feels aligned. And everywhere else where you can release that resistance and be in a state of flow with what is happening, and that still is honoring of your values and your integrity, practice softening. This is a month where we're going to find that balance. We're pulling out of this illusion energy. We're coming into the now. We're attuning to what is, and we're taking action accordingly. This feels like a lot of balanced energy between the masculine and the feminine coming in this month as well. So it's going to be a big month, my friends. Hang in there. Let me know what you're feeling. Comment below this video and let me know how this lands. I look forward to supporting some of you that will join the group healing on February 11th, where we'll really work on this attuning to our needs and softening piece. I suspect we'll continue to work on co-creation with the universe and Mother Earth, because that's going to be a theme all year. So we'll see how that shows up in February. All right. Have a great month, everyone. I'll see you next month.